So breaking news as of about, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes ago. Trinidad Chambliss, eighth runner-up in the Heisman Trophy, Ole Miss quarterback, AT's favorite player, is back at Ole Miss. He got granted a injunction by a Mississippi court and a Ole Miss Ole Miss graduate judge, and he is now eligible to play this season. Out of
Insane.
nowhere, forgetting his tonsils removed 3 years ago, forgetting his tonsils removed and saying he's quote too tired to play. He's too fatigued by his tonsillitis. So
this is going to be the move for these freshmen, right? They're going to redshirt a year, second year, have your tonsils removed, and then that's 2 free seasons right there of just pure development. I mean, that seems like the game plan. So crazy ruling. The craziest thing about it to me too is that this morning the NCAA denied him for like a 6th time. And literally we all hear that and we're like, okay, then it's done. Trinidad's not coming back. And then, here we are. It's before even 7 o'clock, before the evening even hits, we find out that he is indeed eligible because of a Mississippi court ruling. Unbelievable. I don't even know what else to say. I mean, it's, I obviously have a pretty big dog in this fight being a Mississippi State fan. So we were cheering pretty hard against that, but I have a lot of thoughts on it. My first main thing for Trinidad, and I'll kind of take a second here to just think about it. Why in the world is he not just going to the draft? I feel like his draft stock's never going to be higher than it is right now. After that Georgia game, I'm sitting here watching him go. I mean, honestly, I never thought he was just an outstanding quarterback, but in that game alone, he took it over and dominated, absolutely dominated. And no one can deny that. Made play after play after play, even when if it was a bad play call, if there was a breakdown, Georgia defensive players in his mouth, and he's making throws down the field. Crazy. But maybe I'll let you guys talk a little bit about it before I get into my main rant. I don't know, Jake, you got anything to say on that?
Yeah, listen, first and foremost, I mean, like AT, I'm not from the heart of the South, so I may not be as passionate about the Southeastern conferences as you are, my man. But I will say this, agree with a lot with what you were saying. I was very surprised to not see Trinidad Chambliss go to the NFL. I thought after the news came out that Dante Moore was going to go and stay at Oregon, I thought Trinidad Chambliss was a clear-cut QB2 with a chance to, last I saw was probably like a 2nd round grade, could maybe even sneak into the 1st round, depending on what we ended up seeing with, all of these other like NFL teams really needing a quarterback. And I remember that Georgia game very fondly as well. As one of my, a couple of my buddies down south would always say, he put his nuts on his shoulders and he laid it all out there in that Georgia ball game. And, even in that Miami game, he had them in a position to take Ole Miss to the national championship game. So if you want to talk about things from an on-field perspective, if you're an Ole Miss guy, or even an SEC fan that's rooting for a team to win the national championship for the first time in a few years, you are ecstatic by this news, obviously. I mean, Trinidad, he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country in 2026, and he is certainly going to put Ole Miss in a position to be in that not only SEC title hunt, but certainly be back as a national championship contender, so long as Pete Golding can live up to expectations on his end as a head coach.
Right. I mean, and they're going to have a big change in offensive coordinator, which I'm interested to see how that plays out. But they didn't have Lane in the playoff, and he still was able to win, a couple games there and beat Georgia in a way that was unbelievable. If they don't have Trinidad in that game, I don't think they win it. I don't think it was play calling that won them that game. I genuinely think it was his ability to go make stuff happen. So I'll give the kid his props. This is a crazy scenario to me. The biggest takeaway for me is that the NCAA has no power whatsoever. It's crazy that we have a governing body that actually doesn't have any governing power whatsoever. We're talking about the people that set the rules here, not even able to enforce them. And the biggest kicker is what we were talking about right before we started this thing, is that the judge is an OM graduate. He literally went to school there, graduated from there. How can you be more biased? How do you let somebody like that even judge this? It doesn't make any sense. It's the most backwards things I've ever heard. But here we are. And, you know, I guess now we just can get ready to watch it. Like you said, Jake, he's going to be, you know, probably a Heisman favorite early in the season. I would imagine Kalshi odds are going up right now. I'm sure people are already going to start putting money on him to win. And I don't know, maybe he does dominate next season, but I just do not see his draft stock going up. I think you've got a better group of quarterbacks that are going to be graduating next season. You know, we're talking about Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson this year as the only two quarterbacks that really would have squeezed out over him possibly. And I think a lot of guys would take him over Ty anyway. So I think it's a ridiculous ruling. Not only just for, and I will say, if I'm Trinidad, maybe I do want to stay in college. Maybe I do want to play more because, I mean, who doesn't love college football? I could do it for 20 years if I had the opportunity. But it's just not a good look for the NCAA. It's really not at all, because it just proved to everybody today that it doesn't matter what they say. It really doesn't matter that they are the governing body, because at the end of the day, it's just going to be left up to the local courts until this changes. And that's probably the biggest takeaway for me. That's the most upsetting thing for me, is that it really just kind of opened my eyes. And we already knew that, but now it's just solidified into that fact. And, you know, I could rant from a Mississippi State perspective, but to take my bias out of it, it does suck to see that from just a fan of the game. We want our NCAA to be able to govern. We want our NCAA to be able to set rules in place. And it gets more into the NIL and the transfer portal and all the stuff that we think that the NCAA needs to step in and be involved in. And now it's like, do we even want them to? Can they even do anything about it? And I think that's kind of just the telltale here, is that the NCAA has been really, really badly disrespected in this whole process. So
I think another thing we're not including in this conversation that I personally was thinking about as soon as I saw this news break. Last time I checked, these are student athletes. And I know you've said this before, AT, on a previous show. Like, we're just completely glossing over the fact that these are still young adults, you know, kids just graduating out of high school, already making millions of dollars. They have no idea what to do with this money. They have no idea what they're going to do with their lives after football is done. Like, you go to college to get a degree first, and then you have the benefit of playing football, potentially going to the NFL and stuff like that. We are glossing over the fact that these are student athletes first. That blows my mind, that something we're not even, you know, considering anymore with these kids. Another thing for me is, especially for Ole Miss fans, that, you know, personally to me, Kawan Lacey is also coming back. So you get that two-headed monster out of the backfield. You get Trinidad's playmaking ability and one of the best running backs in the country, led the country in touchdowns. So, I mean, that Ole Miss offense already looks probably, you know, twice as better, because they were probably going to have Deuce Knight starting at quarterback for all things considered from now. And now that Trinidad is coming back, I mean, exactly like Jake said, Ole Miss is back in the conversation to, you know, be competing for the SEC next year. It all falls on Pete Golding's shoulders. If he can if he could replicate that magic he had in the playoff, whatever voodoo was going on in that building, keep it up, because it obviously was working. So again, it's blasphemy that we're at a point where the biggest storylines in the offseason isn't about, you know, where a 5-star prospect is going. You know, that is cool, but it's not the headline anymore. The headline is, you know, what player is suing the NCAA for their 6th, 7th year of eligibility? Like, what petition are we filing against the NCAA for, you know, an injunction for a player to, you know, get an extra year eligibility? It's getting ridiculous. It's out of control.
Yeah, it's completely out of control, and really the person and entity that's taking the biggest L in all of this is the NCAA. Now, I don't fancy myself as a lawyer by any means, but I did watch Suits, and I watched clips and bits and pieces of Suits LA to my fortune or misfortune, depending on how you want to take that. Okay, if I heard that the person that's presiding over my case is from the same exact institution that the student athlete is trying to get his extra year of eligibility, They go to the same school, or they graduate from the same school. That's an immediate recusal for me. I'm very surprised, and I don't know if the NCAA actually tried this or not. I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of the case, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. Okay, but what I will say is, if the NCAA didn't even try to get this judge recused and to get somebody else that maybe would have a little bit less of a conflict of interest from that fan perspective, then I mean that's a massive loss by the NCAA. This should have been an open and shut case. Okay, I had my tonsils removed. All 4 tonsils were removed at the same time when I was in my college days, in my college athletic prime. I was a college athlete. Down for 1 week. Now I don't know about you guys, but and we've seen players get an extra year of eligibility because of a significant injury. And I'm not saying that shouldn't happen. I think if you do suffer a significant injury where as a result of that you do miss the vast majority of your season and it's clear cut, then yeah, I think an athlete should be able to get an extra year of eligibility from that. But at the same time, though, and Trinidad's probably a tougher guy than I am, I was only down for a week. If that. You're telling me that Trinidad probably missed 1 game tops at Ferris State?
It's crazy. It's crazy to think that that's literally what made this whole ruling go through too, is tonsillitis. Like you would think it's a broken ankle or an ACL tear or something. And when you look into it, you're like, he was sick. He was sick. He had something. I mean,
drugs.
Yeah, I mean,
drugs.
It's crazy. Right.
It's drugs. He was on drugs.
I mean, who knows at this point? It could be anything. I mean, we could just start making up stuff and getting eligibility for it, medical eligibility for it. I mean, mental health, or whatever. That's going to be the next thing we talk about. I don't feel mentally well this season, so I need to come back and play again next year. But to your point, Jake, if you look up conflict of interest in the dictionary, that was the textbook definition of it. I mean, come on. And it's just crazy to me that we're sitting here even having this conversation. And yet again, one of the biggest kicks in the face back to the NCAA is that there is literally no standard across the board. Some guys get eligible, some guys don't. We got a guy playing in his 7th year for Alabama, and then Diego Pavia was actually kind of in the similar spot as Trinidad Chambliss, and he doesn't get eligibility anymore. So it's really ridiculous to think that it can happen like that. When if we are going to let Trinidad do this, then Diego should be able to come back. Then a lot of these other guys that haven't got eligibility should be able to come back. Do I think they should? Absolutely not. But it's the way that it ruled for Trinidad, so why can't it rule the same way for those guys? It's just an insane time. I mean, you got the whole thing with Charles Badeko at Alabama going on right now. He just got kicked out, and we just got to have some sense of standard, and we got to have a governing body that can actually govern the daggum sport that we watch, in my opinion. So
with no biases towards the team, they have to be a neutral party. They got to be from a third party. Like exactly. You get some law firm or overseeing body to deal with these cases, because we can't have other instances where we just get a fellow grad of the university just going automatically in favor. He was in his chambers for less than an hour and then came out with an hour-and-a-half long statement. You're telling me he came out with an hour-and-a-half long statement? I don't know how many pages it was in less than an hour. Also, props to Trinidad's legal team providing over 90 documents of medical findings and just basically propping up his case. Over 90 pages of medical evidence, basically saying he was on drugs.
The lawyers did their job. We know that.
Yeah,
they got their
hey, props to them.
Yeah.
Props
and
to them.
I'm not blaming Trinidad. I'm not blaming Ole Miss at all, because if I was Trinidad and I was at Ole Miss and I wanted him to return to college football, as an Ole Miss guy, I would have made the exact same argument and I would be advocating for the exact same thing. So, I mean, I'm not blaming either of them so much so as I'm blaming more so of a situation that it's gotten to a point where it's even allowed to happen. So, I mean, that's where we're at. This is a great for Ole Miss, and this is great for the SEC's chances in general to get back to the national title game and win a national championship. But in terms of the sport and creating opportunities for high school athletes to get an opportunity to initially play at the FBS level, I mean, this is a rough day for them. That's for sure.
No doubt. And it sucks to see this happen for somebody when it can't happen for yourself. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of kids that are heartbroken by this ruling, because they wonder why why not me? You know, and yeah, it just, we got to have a standard. We got to have something in place that changes this. And it's, you know, it's exactly what you were saying, Jake. We just, something has to change. Something's got to be fixed. I mean, it just, if we keep up this route, then sports, collegiate sports as we know it, is going to continue to be the Wild West. And we're never going to know what's going to happen. We're never going to know where the ruling is going to be. We're never going to know if a kid can play for 6 years or 7 years or 5 years or 4. And so something's got to change. I don't know what that is. It seems like it's going to have to happen, unfortunately, at the government level, at the federal level. But as of right now, you know, we're just kind of stuck in limbo, and we're going to have a lot of these discussions about more players in the future, which I guess is good for the show. But I don't know how good it is for college football. So